Good evening, everyone. Welcome back to another wonderful tasting with the Virtual Tasting Society. I'm excited today to welcome a Scotch brand that I've been following closely and have been excited to try. Today, we are tasting the GlenAllachie Distillery. Joining us today was supposed to be a guest from Scotland, but due to technical difficulties, he will not be able to join us today. Instead, we got a wee bit of an upgrade. We get the founder of Impex Beverages, the president, also a keeper of the quake. Sam Filmus is joining us here today to walk us through the GlenAllachie lineup and tell us all about the brand. As some of you have met him before, eloquent and knows a lot about whiskey. So make sure you have your questions ready. We're going to definitely get nerdy tonight. Thank you so much for joining us, Sam. It's a pleasure. It's always a pleasure to see you. Thank you for making the time this evening.
Thank you, Vadim, and thanks everyone who joined us today. I think my appearance would probably be most appropriate today on a Halloween night. And I will try to do my best. I want to apologize on behalf of Ron and Kerry, who's moved from one house to another one, and the company was supposed to come and install the internet, and they didn't show up. So instead, you're going to be suffering with me today. I'm going to try to do my best to answer the questions. One thing you're going to be missing is his accent, and you're going to put up with my accent. But again, any questions are welcomed, and I'll try to do my best. And thank you again for understanding. To make up on this, he said next time when he's in California, which is going to be next year, he promised to appear in front of your club in person and kind of balance his brain check at this point.
Sounds great. We're excited. We have 6 fantastic expressions in front of us. So Sam, how do you want to do this? Do you want to taste through each one? Do you want to tell us a little bit about GlenAllachie? Should we line them up? Should we just talk and taste as we go? How do you prefer to do it?
Well, I prefer to do it the way that your group prefers to do it. If you guys don't mind, maybe we just pour the first whiskey just not to keep you dry, and we'll just start the conversation, and you can interrupt me any second, any time. If you feel you need to ask the question or is something not clear, just stop me and we'll go from there.
Perfect. What order should we pour in?
Let's go with the GlenAllachie 8 first.
Okay. I want to line them up in front of me. So can you just read off the order of just how we're going to have them?
Sure. So 8, then 12, and then 15, then Virgin Oak Champagne, then the 10 cask strength, and we're going to finish with a peaty smoky whiskey called Lambrick McNair.
And that's also okay. Cask strength.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, great. Thank you.
Yep.
This 8-year-old is new to the portfolio, right? I'm excited to try this.
We just brought it in. They gave us 500 cases, and 2 weeks later we have 71 left, which is a great debut for this whiskey. I was a bit skeptical because of the age, but I brought the whole group to the distillery about a month ago, and we tasted it there, and everyone was very much surprised for young whiskey to taste like that. So I hope you and your group will like it as much as we did.
It's got a beautiful, beautiful nose. Wow, Kate, that's a nice setup right there. Wow. It's like a whiskey charcuterie board. Ah, nice.
Kate came prepared for sure. So what they were using to create this whiskey was the PX Pedro Jimenez and Oloroso sherry puncheons, which is a bigger size, probably a little bit bigger than Bott's, somewhere between 500 and 700 liters. They also were using the Virgin Oak casks and Rioja wine casks. And that would be up to Billy Walker as to how to compose them, but I think he did a great job. The whiskey it's zesty, but at the same time, I think he's using some older whiskeys to get this maturity and kind of round up the edges. So I think he's got this nice balance. And Rioja, if you want to do like deep, dive more deeper, would be barrique casks, which is in size between bourbon barrel and hogshead, about 225 liters. Bottled at 46%. Nothing is bottled less than 46% at GlenAllachie non-chill filtered natural color. It's a beautiful bronze color. So a little bit about GlenAllachie first, and then maybe we talk about Billy Walker, who is behind this distillery. The distillery was opened, it's kind of a newer distillery in 1967 and ran primarily for a blend. So producing single malts for a blend called Chivas and Royal Salute. And that's a property of Pernod Ricard. So when Billy Walker bought the distillery, and it was 2017, he decided to release GlenAllachie as a single malt. So speaking of Billy Walker, majority of you, if not all of you, know this person. We call him a legend. Just made it to Hall of Fame by Whiskey Magazine. I think there's about 72 people there. He's number 71. He started his career with Ballantine's Blend in 1972. He then went to Burnt Stewart, that was an owner of Tobermory. You probably know Tobermory more like Lechek, their peated whiskey, and also Dinston, the Highland single malt. And then he moved to buying Benriach about 2004, I believe. And then right after that, he bought Glendronach and then Glenglassaugh. So Glendronach was silent for about 6 years. Glenglassaugh was silent for about 20 years. So he kind of reanimated these beautiful distillers that no one really knew a lot about, specifically Glendronach, where he put a lot of sherry influence into the whiskeys. And that's what became Glendronach today, which is loved by many, many whiskey connoisseurs. He was forced by two partners of his to sell all three distilleries, and they sold it for about $400 million. And that would be enough for Billy just to buy a house in Hawaii or somewhere else, and just, he was 71 at that time, 72 actually. But he turns around and buys GlenAllachie. That was 2017. And that's where we started seeing GlenAllachie not just available through independent bottlers like Gordon MacPhail, Signatory. I actually had a bottle that I was used to sell out of Signatory. That's a GlenAllachie in 1992. But seeing that as a distillery release, or OB, official bottling, not IB, independent bottler. So that's brought him a Master Distiller Blender of the Year in 2021. And the GlenAllachie was named Distiller of the Year in 2020. And many, many other expressions from his range would have some great awards, including Best Speyside Whiskey of the Year for their 10-year-old that we're going to taste later. Any notes on 8 years old that you want to share?
It's fruity, but it's also nutty. I get like a sunflower seed note on it, which I really, really enjoy.
Yeah, I got some cinnamon and butterscotch and then honeycomb. Really enjoyable and somewhat affordable. So this is a core expression to the ongoing range, and hopefully it's going to be accepted by us here in the United States in a very successful way.
Yeah, it has some decent development for such a young whiskey.
Yeah, it's pretty delicate. It has a little bit of a zest and playfulness to it, maybe because of a young whiskey, but at the same time, it doesn't come and kind of shake you. It's still soft and delicate. So today, GlenAllachie has, when they bought the distillery, they had 16 warehouses, and Billy added another 2 warehouses that were dunnage warehouses to kind of replicate the centuries of whiskey making traditions in Scotland. So they have 18 warehouses now. 2 spirit stills, 2 wash stills. The wash stills are lantern shape. The spirit stills are onion shape. The capacity, the full capacity of the distillery is 4 million liters of pure alcohol, but they reduced it to 500,000 just to kind of focus on the quality instead of quantity. So another thing that is significant is one of the few Scottish distilleries that are independently owned and managed. So they don't have this kind of a corporate push to produce this specific number of gallons of whiskey. So they have this room for experiments and kind of focus on the quality. Another thing that makes this distillery different from others is the fermentation time. Usual fermentation time is about 48 hours. They take up to 160 hours to ferment their whiskey, the mash. So it's the highest one that I know of in industry. Another thing that makes GlenAllachie special is the wood program. Last year, they spent 1.5 million pounds to buy the wood to produce the quality whiskey, because they really believes that if you put the good whiskey in the bad wood, you're going to have a bad whiskey at the end of the day. So wood program is very important. Specifically, he's kind of focusing on the sherry casks, and he buys different types of sherry casks in different sizes to produce different type of whiskey. Are we ready for number for 12-year-old, or you have any questions on that?
Actually, I'm just curious about how Billy got started, because how does someone go from a blender to owning a distillery? Like, that's a huge jump. Did he have investors to begin with, or just curious about, like, you know, you go from employee to owner?
Sure, absolutely. And he started in 1972 as an employee at Ballantyne's, so he was getting the experience of blending, and that's actually he went through each and every step of whiskey producing rituals and processes. So the first one was Ballantyne's. Then he became a master blend, and it's called Inverhouse. It's not very famous in US, but it's very respected brand in UK and Europe. And so that was Dinston and Tobermory. And then Burn Stewart was sold to Brown-Forman, I believe. And then he kind of went into ownership from Benriach. And again, Benriach was a good starting point. And then then was Glendronach and then Glenglassaugh. So at that point, he started the ownership using his experience that he gained at Ballantyne's and Burn Stewart. As a matter of fact, this year we celebrated his 50th anniversary in business, and he released, it's called Trilogy of 3 different whiskeys, past, present, and future, celebrating his being in business. So this is you'll see 50 on it, but it's actually a 16-year-old whiskey, matured in a sherry cask. You can see the color. And that's bottled at natural strength. That's past. And then present would be Mizunara cask of 16-year-old. And the future would be the first whiskey that was actually produced under his ownership. And that would be a peated GlenAllachie, a 4-year-old. And this one, it's still on the way to us. So yeah.
Jason anticipated you saying that it's still on the water.
Yeah,
I can't wait to
future.
get a hold of that one. I cannot wait to get a hold of that one.
I know people collect them. The price is a little bit crazy, and I apologize for that. But we don't have any problem selling it. We actually have a problem keeping it in stock. I mean, it's all gone within hours. After there's a couple more kind of a releases like this 21-year-old, which didn't make it. The first edition did not make it to the U.S., but because at that time the 700 ml bottles were not allowed, and they only released it in 700 ml bottles, and that's a 30-year-old. There's actually a GlenAllachie, a 42, 43-year-old at their warehouse. I saw the casks when we were there about a month ago, but it's difficult to touch it because of the price. So for now, I'm going to hold off on it. Are we ready for the 12-year-old?
Let's do it.
All right. So 12-year-old is kind of flagship of GlenAllachie. Again, it's when I took over the brand, it was kind of light in color. It was more predominantly bourbon matured. And then Billy started doing his magic, and it's actually predominantly sherry matured now, sherry influenced. Not like 8-year-old that is using the virgin oak. They use the first fill bourbon casks and then sherry casks and virgin oak for the 12-year-old.
And when you say virgin oak, you're saying it would be oak barrels that have not had spirit in them beforehand, or wine. Just
Exactly.
clean oak. Are you using American? Are you using European oak? Or is it toasted? Is it charred?
So most of it is American white oak, and it's toasted about medium level.
Okay.
But when we get closer to virgin oak, there's a special kind of a procedure they use. They air dry the barrels or the staves for about 4 years before they use them. It usually normally it's about 3 months or 4 months, but you'll see the results when you taste their virgin oak series, specifically Chinkapin. So this really more rounded than the 8 years old. It's got some raisin and mocha, some marzipan I get. This is one of my favorite ones, the 12-year-old. I think it's a gate to GlenAllachie. It's like GlenAllachie's signature. That's what GlenAllachie is about. You know, space cider that is predominantly sherry influenced.
How does the 12 stack up to the 8 as far as on the shelf price point?
They're about $10 difference. So 70 is RRP recommended retail price for 8-year-old,
Mhm.
and $80 so it's $10 difference. Yeah. I know that the retail that you use, they have much better prices, but you know, we usually go by nationwide RRP, recommended retail price. And we went through a price increase, so sorry about that. So January 1st, the prices will go up, but I'm still fighting it. So we'll see if I win or not this battle.
Yeah, we noticed that we discovered, my friend and I discovered the GlenAllachie 10-year cask strength last year and bought a few bottles that are like 60 or 70. And then for this tasting, there were 100 everywhere.
Yep.
And what causes, just for everyone's knowledge, what causes the price increase? I mean, freight has gone up, glass has gone up. What is driving this increase?
So there are a few components that, you know, reflect on the price increase. Number one is the barley. Barley cost went up 50%. Then dry goods, as you mentioned. And even though we went from 750 ml to 700, which you as a consumer lose about 7% of the liquid, makes it much easier for them, but they still need to have our label done separately because of the government warning and some other things that TTB requires. So it's not like they do labels for the whole world. The US is specific label. For example, we cannot say 70 CL, we have to say 700 mil, or alcohol by value, it should say alcohol by value. There's a few things that specific to the United States. And so that doesn't make their life easier in terms of, monetary part and logistics, like, freight, everything, basically everything from step one of whiskey making production went up dramatically. There is some good news on the horizon. I think, like, for me to bring a container used to be like $2,500, $3,000. It went up to $15,000, and it used to take 5 weeks to the West Coast. It's been taking 5 months, but now it looks like it's going back to 3 months, which is much better. Not as it used to be, but it's much better. And the quote we got last time was a bit better than the previous one. So I'm optimistic that this will settle up somehow.
Yeah, my understanding is Impex is one of the few importers that during the pandemic, when the tariffs were in place, you took a hit on your end to keep the prices of your brands consistent.
Yeah, I would have not been able to do it by myself, but teaming up with my suppliers like Kilhoman, we just shook the hands with Anthony Wills saying, we'll absorb it 50-50. We will not pass it on to consumer. We'll just eat it and we'll wait till they're gone. And other suppliers were very, team players as well. Maybe not to that degree, but still we were able to maintain reasonable prices where consumer would not feel a huge price increase. With GlenAllachie, specifically, since we're on GlenAllachie page today, we went through 5 price increases. I observed myself 3 of them, and I'm still fighting to not to go through another one in Q1 or January 1st of 2023. And people would think that, oh, you must be working on the fat margins since you're able to. That's not true. That's not true, but we try.
No, we appreciate it. Yeah, we've all noticed the cost of whiskey creeping up.
Yeah.
And I think
We-
GlenAllachie is leading the way for everything in 700s, right? They're not going back to 750s.
No. I was able to keep it at 750 for last year, but no way to keep it. Like what we were doing, we were bringing the core expressions in 750s and then the limited releases in 700 mils, and it was up until end of 2020. In 2021, they used what they had, and then basically in 2022 we just face everything. You will find a few bottles here and there 750, but what we're bringing in, it's all 700. And it was no choice. Basically, the 21-year-old that I showed you, Mark, you're showing what? So 15-year-old, you want the 15-year-old? Okay, let's do 15-year-old. You have one at 750 or 700?
I was holding it up because it's a 15, it's a 750. So
It must be an older one.
It is. If this is the last of the 750s, I'm going to hold on to it.
It's more whiskey for alcoholics. Oops, sorry, Mark. I didn't mean. Beautiful color too. So since you brought it up, do you mind us putting 15?
Yeah, let's move on to the 15.
Jason has one as well.
Unless somebody has notes or questions on the 12, I think it's safe to move on to the 15.
Sure. So that's another core expression of GlenAllachie. So we used to have 12 and 15. Now we have 8, 12, and 15. The difference is it's not only 3 years older, but also the wood treatment is a bit different. And what makes it unique is the fact that it was fully matured in the sherry casks, not finished, not seasoned, not combined with other wood or
Can you-
casks.
Can you walk us through the different woods again for the 8, 12, and 15?
Absolutely,
Thanks.
Kate, absolutely. So the 8 years old was a PX and Oloroso Panchans, which is a big, like bigger than sherry butts, about 600 liters, 650 liters, 700 liters. So PX and sherry. Then virgin oak casks, and it would be somewhere about 250 liters. And then the Rioja Barriques, which is, Spanish wine, that is about 225 liters or 59 gallons. That's 8. The 12, they use first fill bourbon casks. They use the sherry casks and virgin oak. The 15, it's all sherry matured, so they used 4 kinds of sherry casks: PX, Pedro Jimenez, and Oloroso sherry casks, and also 2 different sizes. One is sherry butt, BUTT, which is about 500 liters, and sherry hogshead. Sherry hogshead is about 250 liters. So sherry butts will give you, because it's a less contact between distillate and the wood, it would give you spicy components to it, while sherry hogshead gives you fruity components. So you get this nice combination that is a magic of Billy Walker, that it would probably taste to you pretty much like Macallan used to taste 10, 15 years ago when they were using full sherry maturation. As Mark showed, a full bottle specifically, it's a nice color, kind of a beautiful color, yeah. And it's, needless to say, every label on GlenAllachie says natural color, non-chill filtered. So the color comes from the casks. We don't add any artificial color. There we go. Yep. Thanks, Mark. Yeah, now TTB does not allow us to say natural color because they have a problem with natural. So we need to say no color added. But again, that's TTB, nothing new. Doesn't matter to us in terms of taking the idea through all our whiskeys that we bring in. We don't believe in artificial color. We do only, we just, bottle whiskey at natural color and non-chill filtered. So here you get some nice dry tropical fruits like dates and figs, toasted almond, get some raisins.
They're
Tomato-
surprisingly very different from each other. I mean, I don't know that if a blind taste testing, somebody said, are these from the same blender or what? I don't know that I would know that with these. They're very different from each other.
It's a great point, Kate. The idea is when people think, okay, it says 8 and then it says 12 and it says 15. So it's the same thing, but it's been for another 4 years in the cask, or it's been another 3 years between 12 and 15. No, that's not the case. All these whiskeys are good at that age with the wood treatment that Billy Walker came up and kind of created. So yeah, they're different. They're different, but they're the same. Sorry.
Oh, Sam, I was just going to say, I mean, I think age 10 to 12 years, there's probably not a huge difference. But when you start to get up over 15, then you start to feel a lot more of that earthy oak influence. And I think that that's really, to me, to my palate, what sets the 15 apart is just the lovely earth note. To me, it comes across as a leather note. on the back end of the 15. And that's really what sets it apart. But I would agree. I think while aging doesn't make a huge difference, the finishes across the board, what Billy can do when he works with wood is absolutely amazing. And all of these are very different expressions.
Agreed, Mark. And Billy lives about 3 hours from the distillery, but his day starts at 4 a.m. when no one is at the distillery, and he goes there and just does his magic. And I had the pleasure spending with him about 4 hours. So, and I was in the restaurant, not at the distillery. We did our kind of a must done part when I took 15 people of my team to the distillery and the warehouses and all this stuff. But seeing Billy in a very relaxed atmosphere and just learning from him, and he's so sharp, he's so knowledgeable, he's so passionate in his 77 years. It's just amazing, just amazing. I will never forget this evening. A real legend.
Is that the one where Joshua spilled something on him or something like that?
I don't remember. Joshua sat at another table and then he joined us. So could have been at that time we had a few bottles of wine that Billy kept ordering. So I would not be surprised. Any more comments on 15? A lot of people, I think it's Mark's favorite as well, right, Mark? Or you changed your mind?
Oh, come on, stop playing favorites. Yes, I admit it. It's my favorite. It's my favorite Scotch of all time. Are we going to see for the holidays? Are we going to see it back up on shelves?
Well, it's actually we brought a good number of cases for the holidays. I didn't want to take any chances. So basically, we bring at this point we bring from GlenAllachie whatever they have available, we just bring. So if they call us and say we have 1,000 cases of 12, we'll just take them right away. So yeah, we're pretty. Also, we just brought 3 single casks. One was Madeira, and then Cabernet Sauvignon, Napa Valley, and Sauterne, which is a
You
little
said
bit
the
different
magic
from.
word. Where's the Madeira?
A cab cask, really? Wow.
Yeah. We went a little bit away from the main, PX Panchan.
Sure.
And for those who kind of don't know the process of us selecting casks, I'll just show you what we received from Billy, who selects it by himself first. It's like this small, tiny samples. And then we taste them and we kind of narrow it down to whatever we feel. So we decided before we would bring, they would give us 10 casks a year. That's all. So majority of them would be sherry forwarded casks, but this time we decided to blend it a little bit with some unusual stuff, and so you're going to see them hitting the shelves soon because the containers just came about a week ago or so.
Yeah, I didn't notice it until the 15, but I think that being just in sherry, it really brought out the fact that, when I think of a lot of the classic scotches that are exclusively in sherry, one of the things a lot of them have in common is they have this amazing nose and the palate can never keep up. And then going back on all of your expressions so far, the nose is nice, but it hides the palate. The palate, every time you sip on it, you're getting a lot more flavor than you thought was going to be there.
Great point, Jason. Great point. So it's like a hidden gem there that you can discover by. Have you tried to add some water? It looks like you're enjoying it at 46. Yeah, no?
Yeah, just a drop.
I think that's the magic of Billy and how he works with the wood is if you taste across the spectrum of the GlenAllachie lineup, it doesn't matter. They all have a very sort of silky, luxurious mouthfeel to them. That's something that is common to all of the GlenAllachie expressions.
I will say,
Yeah.
however, I found it interesting that, and I appreciate Kate bringing up that question about the different wood components of the different years. The 15 is beautiful, but it's a classic sherry bomb. Whereas I think it so far with these three, the older we got, the more we got classic, well-rounded, like solid, easy drinking whiskey. But the 8-year had so many different components. It was the most complex and most interesting, at least for me. It was, it had a little bit of a bite. It had the vibrancy of a younger whiskey, but it also had the sweetness, the spiciness, all these different components singing in harmony. It was really interesting.
Yeah, it sort of kept you guessing a little bit. It was fun.
Yeah.
One of my favorites that I'd love to see another sample of, or I'd love to see again. Sam, you and I talked about this. It was I think it was the 10 in the Gratamaco cask. Wow, what a unique experience that was. I mean, and very different than sort of the sherry or the PX influence. Very, very, it was like cotton candy. It was this Scotch, but it just was cotton candy. It was unbelievable.
I might have to find that. That sounds amazing.
It does.
When I was going through my samples today, getting ready for tonight's tasting, I came across one tiny, like it was a 750 ml bottle of Gratamaco, but it was probably a few drops of it left. So I can send it to you, Mark, just to have fun with it. It's just really.
I think I
tiny
have
drops.
one in the last batch that you sent to me. I think that there's a Gratamaco that's in there.
Then I have to send it to Vadim because now I
Send it to Vadim for sure. Yeah, let's share it with Vadim for sure.
Mark, you're so kind. I hope you're not going to regret it later, but that's okay. That's another example of this is PX Panchan that you can see the color, and it's not even in the big bottle. Usually, big bottle would make it even darker. So that's one of the casks that we actually selected. 2007 PX Panchan. Why I'm kind of focusing on sherry mature. The next one has nothing to do with sherry. So let's just put sherry on hold for a few minutes, and we'll come back to it. And we're gonna do Chinkapin, and that's their Virgin Oak series. And the last three were French Oak, and then Scottish Oak, 15-year-old, and Chinkapin. Which Chinkapin, people think it's kind of rare. It's not very rare. It actually, you can find it in Florida, in Texas, in Kansas, in Canada. This particular one comes from Midwest Missouri. And so Billy's Virgin series is different from Billy's Wood series that Mark and Vadim mentioned. One of them was Gratamaco, another one was rye from Koval Distillery. And then there was another one, Portwood finish. And then we brought rye from Rabbit Hole Distillery exclusively for Impact. So it was specifically selected and exclusive to the US. I know people get confused with wood finishes and Virgin Oak. So Virgin Oak Chinkapin, which is a 10-year-old, and it's bottled at 48%. So before we were tasting the whiskeys at 46%, Virgin Oak series come at 48%. So it started its life in a bourbon barrel, and it was finished in Chinkapin oak for about 18 months. But before they used the Chinkapin cask, they air-dried it for 4 years. So you got this orange zest, the heather, the honey, the nutmeg in it. So it's different from sherry cask. Still has this GlenAllachie DNA, but the wood really makes a huge difference.
Well, it seems like a lot of brands are coming out with Chinkapin all of a sudden. Is Chinkapin a type of oak, or I mean, it's got to be if they're aging Scotch in it. But it seems like I'd never heard of Chinkapin until this year, maybe last year, and all of a sudden, a bunch of people are coming out with it.
GlenMorangie had a limited release of Chinkapin finished, I believe, expression. Then the new distillery that comes to the United States soon, you probably have heard of it. It's called Isle of Raasay. They use Chinkapin. It's spelled differently. Both spellings are right. One with a Q, UA, another one with a KA, Chinkapin. I'm not sure if other distilleries using it because I've heard that it's a bit difficult to work with, but we need to probably dive deeper and see what other distilleries use it. But I think it has its own uniqueness, and especially this orange zest, it just goes through the nose right away. And I think that's what makes it unique. And on the palate, I get some orange peel and honey. Now it's left at 48%, so it's okay to add a few drops of water to bring it to the level you like and open it more and enjoy more this specific wood.
So what is the deal with Chinkapin? Is it a regional oak or?
So the one that they use comes from Missouri, but you
So
can
it's a
find
Quercus
it
alba.
exactly. I think it's originated was kind of a origin of Central Texas. Then you can go to Midwest like Kansas, you'll find them there. You can find them all the way in Canada. You find them in the Southeast, Florida. So it's just a type of oak that I think you will see more and more distilleries using it specifically in the United States to produce. I know the Buffalo Trace was using it as well to produce their bourbon. I could see within the next 5 years more and more people using it to finish or mature their whiskeys. It has this kind of uniqueness to it. I like this lemon zest feel to it. The sample I taste actually comes from the single cask. As I told you, Vadim, I ran out of it. So you had to buy a bottle and share it with your club members, which I appreciate very much, because I think while GlenAllachie is so famous of its predominantly sherry influenced whiskeys, seeing something else, it's always fun.
At the time when I was pulling this 10-year-old from Mission, they also had a 13-year-old Chinkapin oak from GlenAllachie. But I wanted to try something that, people like it, they can actually pick it up because the 13's gone now.
Yeah. What was it? A 48% was a single cask?
I think it was a single cask. It was a vintage 2008.
Sure. Yeah. When we see this kind of things on manifest, we just take it because we want to be niche and kind of unique and a little bit different. So,
Well, I mean, when I visited GlenAllachie back in May, when you set up that tour for me, the best thing I tasted there was their Madeira cask. And of course, they prefaced pouring me a sample of it with, so this cask is sold out. This sample bottle is all that's left. Maybe we shouldn't give you a sample. And I was like, no, it'll be fine. And then my jaw dropped on the floor and I was like, all right, show me the list of, because you sign a guest book when you buy a bottle. I'm like, all right, let me flip through the guest book and see where I can like find someone that bought more than one bottle and kick their butt and take one.
yeah, you'll be able to kind of repeat the experience that you had at the distillery by
That was the Madeira cask, Vadim?
I'm sorry?
That was the Madeira cask?
Yeah, it was absolutely amazing. Yeah. I have a soft spot for Madeira cask whiskeys.
Madeira works great with a lot of distilleries from not only from Scottish distilleries but from all over the world. Specifically, Penderyn is their kind of a gateway. Legend
That's the
is
one
Madeira.
that, yeah, that's the legend Madeira from Penderyn was my first introduction for Madeira, and I was like, oh my god, this is amazing.
Yeah, I'm sure it doesn't work with all the distilleries, but probably a good chunk of them would be good, because you think of fortified wines, Madeira, port, sherry. Yeah. All right, so we're ready for the 10-year-old cask strength, small batch, number 7.
I'm curious what people thought of this chinkapin as you're pouring the cask strength. Anybody want to chime in? What did you guys think of the chinkapin?
I loved it. I grew up with chinkapin oak around us, like every park, that sort of thing. It smells like chinkapin in the rain a little bit. It really interesting that there's a subtle difference to the flavor from the wood. It's so close to Krekosaba, but the Krekos Muhlenbergi is really, it's really prominent. It's surprising because I wouldn't have thought it would have been so different. But this is just lovely. I just don't want to pour anything else. I just want to smell the glass.
That's so wonderful, Jane. I've heard that it takes longer, like a few years longer for chinkapin oak to grow. And they're kind of shorter, but the structure, probably the structure of the wood is what, every, Scotch maker is looking for. And it's just great that brings you some memories. That's so cool.
I thought it was again with the wood and Billy with his wood, he's doing a great job. It was really different in my, and I'm going to hold on to it because I want to taste it another time separately from all these other things, because it's so different. And I can't decide if I like it yet or not, but it's unusual enough. I want to try it. And I don't have the memories of it like Jane does, but yeah, anyway, I'm excited about trying it out by itself.
Try it
Okay.
first thing in the morning before your coffee. Sorry, you were saying, Sam? I'm sorry.
Well, it's obvious that in Billy's heart, sherry is kind of a number one thing, but at the same time, he doesn't want you to get bored with it. If he wants to open this box for people with different taste profiles and different variations of the wood, which now you can see what Jane's saying and what Kate's saying. Even she doesn't like it, it interests her, which is very, very clever of him. That's not just, keeping yourself in the box of sherry. Sherry is great. There's some other great whiskeys out there, great varietals, great expressions. So 10-year-old cask strength, and the reason I kind of changed, Vadim, if you probably noticed the order of pouring, because chinkapin was at 48%, and I want to kind of take a break of sherry casks, because now we're getting back into sherry cask, and now it's a cask strength. So I hope this didn't really break the order of enjoying this range. So this is we call it small batch, and this is batch number 7. Batch number 4 was named World Best Whiskey, Best Single Malt by World Whiskey Awards. So as much as he's trying to make it consistent, but I think batch would vary from batch to batch. So this one is bottled at 56.8%, which is natural strength or cask strength. And it's a combination of Pedro Jimenez and Oloroso puncheons, virgin oak, and Rioja casks. So you probably have met that before in some, maybe it was 8-year-old. But because it's cask strength and because it's 10-year-old, I hope you will get more what GlenAllachie is about in terms of how far the distiller can go when it comes to quality and taste.
Yeah, Jordan and I tried this last year, and I think it was at a bottle share, and it was one of those bottles that we both instantly bought it, like standing there, pulled out our phones and bought it, and we were like, I think it was $60 at the time. We're like, this is insane value. I bought one, he bought two. And at some point he told so many of his friends and family about it that he was saying that he ended up with like 4 or 5 bottles in his collection. And he's like, I'm not even mad about that. This is so good. This is so, yeah. The moment I poured this in my glass and nosed it, I was like, I remember this is so beautiful.
Vadim, did you get batch 7 or which?
No, I
number
think
did you
it
get?
was batch 5 or 6. It was one of the bottle shares in the valley.
Okay,
this was-
I got batch 5,
Mhm.
and I grabbed 2 bottles because I thought the price was very good.
Mhm.
I am not angry about that.
Right?
It's good.
Yeah, I bought a bottle, and then I think I ended up trading someone, and I got another bottle, and I'm like, I'll happily have multiples of this in my collection any day.
Yeah, it looks like Tony paid only $65, which I would buy it back from you, Tony. This is a great price.
Yeah.
Might even give you 66.
Yeah, sure. RRP is 105, but I think the retailer that you use, Vadim, I think they have it for 90 or something like that, which is crazy. Even it's not 65, but it's still much better price. It's not going to get better, I can tell you, especially with this one, because they used to allocate 500 cases for the US. And I think when you meet people in person, it kind of plays its magic. And so now they increased it for me for 1,000. So batch 8, we will be getting twice as much as previous batches. So hopefully it's going to be available for a longer period of time.
And how does the palette change between batches? Are they shooting for consistency, or are they aiming for best possible at the time?
It's both, Vadim. I can't answer exactly. I know that batch 1 and batch 2, which is very difficult to find now, they were not my favorite ones. They were lighter in color. There was more like bourbon influence, which is great, kind of a vanilla sweetness to it. But with batch 3 and on, you can see the sherry prevailing. It's like really sherry influenced. And I know some people are kind of collecting them. And I think that's the best way to compare side by side. I didn't find a huge difference between all of them. I tried blindly and tried, just with some people. I think as much as they need to be a little bit different from each other, I think Billy's thing is a little bit of a consistency, because he's been so much of a success with it, so he doesn't want to change it. But that's my opinion. This
And the
one
10-year
has
cask strength again is all sherry, right?
No, it's not all sherry. It's majority of it, 75% is PX and Oloroso.
Mhm.
And then you get some virgin oak and some Rioja. So Rioja has started bringing to round down the edges, especially with 10 years old bottle that cask strength. You want to make sure it's still soft and kind of delicate space cider that is pleasant to kind of an approach. So Rioja really does this magic of making it so kind of soft and smooth.
Not a lot of brands are using Rioja to age their whiskey. It seems like I haven't seen a lot of Rioja out there.
He seems to like it. When I took the brand over, we had some leftovers from the previous batches of 12, and he didn't, even though it was already predominantly sherry influenced, he didn't use the Rioja casks. but next batch that we brought under our own importership had it, and the difference was significant.
Vadim, you should taste your batch 5 next to batch 7. I'm throwing it in here in my tasting. Yeah, I can taste, they're similar, right? You can tell they're in the same barrels and all, but they're also different. Yeah, it's great.
That's
I'm not
that's
gonna-
great.
I'm not gonna kick either one of these out of bed, you know? It's good for me.
I actually have a little bit left of batch 5, and if you want to share it with some of your, members, I can send it to you, Vadim, and then you'll just looks like you have, or you're done with your bottle.
Sam, I
Me?
have a general question if you've got a second.
Sure, Mark.
What do you think the market's like for cask strength on the Scotch side, on the single malt side?
Well, here in the United States, I think it has a bright future because people want to get educated and they're open to things like in France, you can sell 40% ABV whiskey all day long. They don't care. You can sell rums from Panama, from Guyana, which are very kind of a light and soft. Here we want something Jamaican rum with a funk, with some. I think giving people the opportunity to taste it like that at cask strength, and then bring it down to the level they like instead of drinking something that's been already prefixed for them, it's a huge deal. Because today you want it to be strong and you want it to kind of get a little bit of funk out of it. That's your right and your opportunity. Tomorrow you want it to be a little bit lighter. You get a hot day, you want to put a couple of chips of ice, nothing wrong with it. It's not a crime at all. Then you should do it. And by having the ABV on a higher level, it gives you this opportunity. For many years we were educating people how great is 46%, because then it's non-chill filtered. And today I think we're all ready for step ahead. To see something at 48, at 50, and maybe eventually cask strength. The problem, Mark, is it becomes very expensive. Especially, they pay for each percent in Scotland. And then when you bring here, like for California, if everything is 50% and up, the state tax or excise tax doubles. So that reflects at you guys as a consumer. So finding this kind of a golden medium, that's probably something that we all need to work on.
Yeah, I think that there's an interesting horizon on this, and I think it's still a bit unwritten as to how we're going to see expressions in the future.
Yeah, from our side, and we're a small potato on a big plate. We're trying to do everything not less than 46%. And you've probably seen things like Arnamarchen, it's 46.8, and we have another one that's 46.4. And then limited releases go to 48% on majority of things that we bring. And we also give people an opportunity to have something like a small batch at cask strength or single cask at cask strength. Single cask, always cask strength. Now we bring in Kilhoman. Sorry, I'm switching a little bit, but since this was a great question, Macher Bay is going to come as a limited release, but it's going to be cask strength, natural strength. And that would brought us 99 points, which I never heard in whiskey industry. Wines, yes, 99 points, but not whiskey. This one. So the evolution is going there. When it's going to come to massive kind of a situation, I don't know.
You had a release that was marked USA Special of a Machier Bay a few years ago that was cask strength, and I was able to get one. I like it very much.
Yes, Wes. This one is actually worldwide release, but when we had the East Coast tour and West Coast tour and Midwest tour, that was Macher Bay cast strength US exclusive.
So
But
I'll look
we
forward.
also have,
Go
yeah.
ahead. I was gonna say, I'll look forward for the next one, but you were saying,
Well, if you see all this single cast that called Impacts Cask Evolution series,
Mhm.
we always bring them at cast strength. Otherwise, Mark would be upset with us. So we have to kind of be consumers desire. No, that's we wanted to bring it as natural as only possible. Like basically, either you go to the distillery and taste it right off the cask, or you have an opportunity to purchase the bottle and taste it. We don't do anything to it. All we do is we select it after the Anthony Wills or distillery manager selects this for us, send us the samples, and I and 3 people that I trust, the pallets, we taste them blindly, and then we decide which one to bring in.
well, it was very good. Look forward to the next one.
Thank you, Wes. Thank you. I hope you'll like it as well as we did.
So Sam, given that statement about choosing 3 people whose palate you trust, how does one gain your trust to be a part of that threesome?
Well, Jason, you probably know the person by the name of Joshua Hatton. He's one of people that I trust entirely. I trust him more than I trust myself. His palate is unbelievable. Another one is my partner, Chris Udi, who is in actually your area in LA. And then I choose someone like Travis Williams if it comes to Kilhoman. You probably know majority of know Travis. And as a matter of fact, one time I brought Elijah, Ammon, and Fernando and Travis to select one cask because I'm trying to not to be bored and not to bore everyone by having the same panel. So I decided to take some people who are just whiskey connoisseurs. They don't have anything to do with the trade with the industry. They just love whiskeys and they love what we bring. So I said, why don't you be one of Penderyn single cask that we brought in was selected by my office manager, Helen Brabi, who has a great palate. Like, so I think taking us out of the box and trusting other people is always good. And if there's a mistake, that's fine. We're trying not to make it, but there's always a room for, we call it ambora in Gaelic, which is a massive mistake.
But when you have these people do the tasting, you're trying to figure out what does the American market or what does the market that I serve want? Because these same people that you trust, if you were selling to the Japanese market or the French market, it wouldn't be those same people. It would be probably a different group of people, right?
Absolutely, Kate. Absolutely, 100%. So Joshua runs his own company called Single Cask Nation, and he's in charge of selecting single casks for the club and for the public. Chris is the one who is responsible for Japanese part of our portfolio. So he goes to Japanese distilleries or distilleries in Japan. He tastes them. He then sends, we don't make our decision right away because we need to retaste them when we're here back in the US. So everything that we taste is with the mind that how the American consumer will accept it. Will they like it or they don't? Yeah, and I'm the US importer. I like all things with France, I know it's our competition because sometimes they steal my casks that I really like. So, but that's a different story.
Have you ever had a time where you've tasted casks and you've said, I personally love this one, but I don't think it will sell, so I'm going to go with a different one? Like what I think people want versus what I want. Because I can see that being very difficult to do.
Yeah, good question, Vadim.
Yes, and it is very difficult to say no to the cask. But we all need to be in agreement. If one of us is not, that means no. But also, and that's more like for independent bottler casks. Like today we're talking GlenAllachie. It's hard to prove Billy wrong, but he's the one who picks the casks for us, samples. And he's okay. Sometimes we do disagree on a few things, but again, it's like Kate said, it's more like adjusted to American market. But I had to say no to a very good cask from Adelphi. And again, that came through Alex's Bruce lips. And it's very difficult for me to tell him that's not, up to my standards or even your standards. But I had to say no to one cask, which they had no problem selling right away in Europe. But we had a deeper conversation with him when I visited the distillery, Arnhem, and we came to the agreement. But it was difficult even to carry this conversation because Alex Bruce is a legend when it comes to select best cask that available out there. So who am I? But my mission and my job is to make sure that I bring what the distilleries have to offer at their best. And I will not trade that for anything.
Tony had a really good question. Tony, do you want to vocalize it?
Yeah, excuse me. I was wondering if you can go over again the nuances between the sherry butt versus the sherry cask.
Sure, Tony. Great question. So number one, let's start with there's like 5 or 6 sherry wine varietals. It goes from Fino to Montezuma to Oloroso to Pedro Jimenez and et cetera, et cetera. Pedro Jimenez is the most concentrated. It's kind of looks like a licorice when you pour it. So people use it. Most of these are used as a finish. But if you're talking about full maturation from day one, the sherry butt, B-U-T-T, is a size of 500 liters, where sherry hogshead is only 250. So it's half size of sherry butt. So sherry butt would be put on a longer maturation because there's not intense connection between the liquid and the wood because of the size. While hogshead has more kind of a hybrid maturation pass because of the smaller size of the cask. So what we've kind of were able to find out as a result, the sherry butt would give you a spicy components, while sherry hogshead gives you the fruity components, like figs, dates, some kind of tropical fruits. That's major differences between these two, but there's more to it. And that's something at some point, if you are able to get to GlenAllachie and you are able to get to talk to Billy, he's like a walking Wikipedia. He's so you just started him on a sherry, he will not shut up. He will not and you would get so much knowledge that you would never be able to go to a library and read about that or Google about it. It's just something that comes so organically, so natural with a person with a 50-year experience and with a huge passion to what he's doing.
I may get back over to Scotland this winter. I'm not sure, or next fall, I should say.
Well, let Vadim know, and we'll try to paint the carpet in red for you when you
Thank
go
you
there.
very much.
Does
I think-
the same kind of thing apply for a port and a port wood versus port pipe? That's something I've always seen. There was some confusion for me when I had the GlenAllachie 12 port pipe or ruby port wood that was, and trying to figure out the difference between the US release and the UK release. It took me the longest time to sort those two out. So is there a difference between a port wood and a port pipe?
Jason, to me, and I might be totally wrong, to me, there's no difference between port wood and port pipe. Port pipe, it's kind of, it's a little bit longer and narrower at the edges cask that I've seen a lot of by visiting the warehouses. I think it's the same, but again, I apologize if I'm wrong. Maybe I'll look into this and get back to you through Vadim. Did you find it like a difference between European release and US release?
Well, I haven't had the chance to taste both of them, so I don't know from an experience perspective if there's a difference, but it was just looking, like, if you look at the box for the US, the Impex release, the Impex US release for the 12-year-old port, it's different than the standard UK release. So the note, even things like the notes on the box were different. So I'm imagining that there's a different experience and that it has something to do with maybe the different shape of the wood. So I was just wondering if there was something specific that you knew of with that. So, because I've seen, like, Glendronach has a port wood, Aaron says port wood, but then I've got a couple of Bladnochs, which are that low in the recently opened recently reopened Lowlands distillery. They've got 2 port pipe releases. So it's like trying to figure out, is there a difference between a port wood, port pipe, and how does that change the experience of the spirit?
Sure. If I'm not mistaken, the European port wood was 11-year-old, ours was 12, because I think by the time we bottled it, got the label approvals, etc., it's got a little bit older. I know that distillers or blenders or people at the warehouse are playing with 2 kind of a major port types. One is the ruby port, another one is tawny port. I know that we had a few single cask Pandarian releases with both, and kind of our opinions divided by this one. To me, tawny was more like drier, and I kind of like that part, but there was a lot of people who liked ruby port. So again, it's something probably for me to look into specifically if there's a difference between port pipe and port cask. Are we ready for the next one?
I think we're about to move on to the Lum Reek. We're gonna wreck our palates and move on to the Rum Reek. I say that sometimes fast. But as we do that, as is customary on our last dram, I invite everyone to turn on their cameras for just a second and join us on the screen as we raise a toast to Sam for joining us tonight and spending the evening with us, and to GlenAllachie. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom with us and sharing this information so we can learn about this wonderful brand and sharing the spirit with us. So cheers to you.
Cheers to everyone. Thank you very much.
Love it. I also created a poll for the first 5 expressions because I feel like the last one is going to taste very different. So it won't exactly be a fair poll. So I'm going to throw this out there as we pour the last one.
This is a tough call. I really enjoyed all of these, and they're just so different. So good time.
You got to pick the one you're going to buy.
I agree. This is a very tough one.
I like it, making it tough for you guys. That's a good call. Good sign.
I have one favorite in 4 seconds.
That's a quick time to pick a favorite.
5-way tie for first. It's the only way to win this one. 5-way tie.
So Sam, tell us about this Lumreek. It's a spin-off brand, or what is it?
So when Billy Walker bought the distillery, and that he bought it from Pernod Ricard, so he also bought two other brands from them. One is called Lumreek or McNair's, which is a blended malt or blend of malts, which is 100% malted barley. Another one is called White Heather, which is a blended whiskey. Part of it is malted barley, part of it is single grain. So this Lumreek, speaking of toast, that's it's a Scottish toast to long life. So when they Lumreek, oh, there we go. Jason has the 15-year-old White Heather. It's great. Where'd you get it?
I got it from, I can't remember which store it was, but it was from the UK. I do this all the time where I figure out ways to sneak UK stuff into Minnesota, where they're very, 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 very stringent about having things shipped to consumers. So I do that every once in a while. I cheat. And I was actually going to ask if the White Heather is going to be coming to the US, to your knowledge.
It is, and it's on the way, and I think the next container that we're going to be clearing would have White Heather 15, and we just I think it's either about to hit the vessel or looking for a vessel for 21. So it's going to be 15 that you have. I think it was 15, and then 21 coming right after that. So you're from Minnesota, you're saying?
Yep.
Yeah, so probably Ace Liquors will have it some other. Do you know Melissa Ginsberg?
I know of. I haven't chatted with her much, but I know of her. We just haven't been able to connect before. That's all.
Sure. So
but I can reach out.
Let me know if you'd like to be connected. She's a huge source for Minnesota. She'll let you know.
Awesome. Thanks, Sam.
Tony, so we have 12 and 15 in Total Wine. We're not in a rush to submit the 8-year-old. The question was, are we available in Total Wine? So 12 and 15 for sure nationwide. And some select stores would still have 10-year-old 7. We haven't submitted the 10-year-old patch 8 yet because it's still in the water. But we'll probably submit it because now we have double allocation, so it'll be enough for it to hit the. There's 21 there, gem hit. Wow, there you go. Yep. Yeah, looking forward to it because people kind of getting scared when they see blended whiskey. And I know that this group is educated enough to see the difference between blend of malts or blended malt or blended whiskey. But GlenAllachie, it's both. And both are highest quality. Like the one we're tasting now, and again, I don't really like throwing the kind of awards at people, but one of the prestigious competition gave it best in show, not best in class, not best in category, but best in show. So 10-year-old cask strength, bottled at 55.4. It's a blend of 4 distilleries. 2 of them are from Islay. One of them is GlenAllachie, of course, Speyside, and another one is from Highland. And sometimes, or in many cases, to come up with a good blend, you have to be very talented and experienced, and of course, work with a good material. So that's what Billy Walker is about. That's his blend from A to Z. And I hope you're gonna appreciate his hard work and his talent by liking it.
So as everyone on this call will tell you, I really don't like peated whiskeys. However, I got to tell you, I'm kind of thrilled by this one. For me, thrilled buy a peated whiskey means I'm not spitting it out. And actually, I mean, I'm actually really enjoying it. And I was trying to figure out why. Why do I like this one? Why do I hate all others? But I think you probably just explained it by saying that, you know, it's the blend. They take a couple of Islas, they take GlenAllachie, they take the other Highland, and that probably all softens it. And it doesn't have that heaviness in my mouth that I so dislike. But this is like, you know, like Jane talked about, you know, the Chinquapin, you know, dredges up memories of her youth. I think this dredges up memories of peated fires and stuff, but not the negative parts of it, I guess. I don't know how to say that. I'm
Well-
thrilled. That's all I can say.
Well, Kate, if Billy heard this, it's music to my ears. It would be symphony to his ears, especially for people who don't like Islay whiskeys. Just say that. And again, it's not a coincidence. He starts with buying the casks of the highest quality from these distilleries. That's number one. And then, you know, he puts him in a Spanish sherry casks and then wine barriques and virginal casks. And they sit there for a while, and then he marries everything together and put it in the wood. So they would get used to each other and to the wood to get more kind of more characteristics to be extracted from there. So it's a magic of things that he does where people like yourself who don't like Islay whiskeys actually enjoy it. So thank you for that. But you can see it doesn't come in like shaky, here I am, like majority of Islay whiskeys, which I like Islay whiskeys, don't get me wrong, but you know, Lagavulin would hit you with some peat up front, or Lafroy with some medicinal notes. And some people love it, some people don't. That's fine. But the smoke and honey and ginger that goes through, it's just pleasant, right? It's great character, but it doesn't punch you in the face like here I am. And I think that's the idea. You got
Yeah,
some
and
ginger.
for me, it doesn't overpower everything else, right? Like you talked about the ginger and the honey, and it doesn't hang on my tongue like a lot of the other peated whiskeys do.
Yeah, you get some smoke spices there, but I think that's what he's trying to achieve, to make this all four components with his touch to become a symphony, not like overpowering one another or not, you know, fighting between each other, but to really become a nice drink. Got some hint of leather. It reminds me actually, when I was much smaller, 5-6 years old, my dad would come with a pair of shoes that he just bought from the store, and this leather kind of a spirit in the air. That's what just brought me to this particular.
Are you able to tell us which of these four distilleries, or is that a secret thing?
Well, Jamshid, it's secret. GlenAllachie for sure.
Okay.
One of the distilleries is right next to Portiscay in the north side of Iowa.
Okay.
Another one produces a very fruity. And this is one positive thing that Ronan is not today with us. That I can say that because he would not get that from him. But at the end of the day, it's a great drink. That's all that matters. They also have 21-year-old, which actually won best blend of the year in 2021. The same combination, but higher age, and of course it's let me see if I have the RRP on this. Yeah, it's $220 a bottle. The one you taste now, I think it's about $100. It's a very good at the cask strength. If you like it, it's a good value for this blended malt, as long as you're not offended by the word blended. Oh, I'm in trouble. Bill is now trying to put these things about me saying about this Islay distilleries. Or you're just doing the tasting notes, sorry.
So with this, the Lumreek, that's not branded under GlenAllachie. That's going to be under a different brand, correct?
So yeah, it's going to be under McNear's. There we go, the 12-year-old here. So you'll see that, Shane, and you also will see some rums from Jamaica and I believe Panama under the same brand. So it's affiliated with GlenAllachie, but they're not going to put GlenAllachie on it as a brand. If that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely. And then the one that we're tasting, is that a 10-year or 12-year?
This is 10-year-old.
Okay, I didn't.
12-year-old, yeah, was reduced by 46 to 46%. The one you tasted, the cask strength, at 55.4.
Much better, thank you.
Yeah, and this is 21. That's how it looks. '21 is bottled at 48%. So the only one out of three at cask strength is the one that you're tasting now, the 10-year-old.
This is definitely very, very different, very interesting.
I feel like you don't
Sam.
see a lot of blends that are peated too. Like they pronounce themselves as a peated blend. I'm thinking about the blends that I've heard of and that I know of, and I just don't feel like when you talk about a blend that the first thing that you think of, oh, this is a blend that has the label on it that specifically says it's peated. Like the 12-year-old I have has a label on it that says peated. Whereas most blends, you just don't seem to see that very often.
Well, Jason, probably another good example would be Pit Monster from John Glazer, right?
Yep.
That's for those who don't know, it's Compass Box. It's another great producer or brand that produces that shows that blend, nothing wrong with blended, malt or blended whiskey.
So another question was, did the name Lumreek, did you mention where that came from or what that is?
So in Gaelic, it's like it's a toast to the long life.
Got it.
I like it very much.
On second sip, I felt like the smoke was a lot more muted, but on the finish, I still get a lot of the char. But I enjoyed it a lot more on the second sip for sure.
I think again, getting back to sherry, I think because it was sherry influence was really there, that makes it like a coat, like a velvet coat, and it really makes it more enjoyable. But you get all the peaty components that you're looking for in Islay whiskeys, like bonfire, a bit smoke and peat on the mid palate and on. Maybe not as much on the nose, maybe because it's cask strength and it needs maybe a drop of water to open, or just sit on a in a glass for about 5 minutes for oxidation process to start to breathe. But definitely on the palate.
So everyone voted for their favorite GlenAllachie. What do you think was the group's favorite?
You asking me to guess?
Yeah.
Oh, it's like you asking me to say which child of mine is more likable.
Yeah. Which daughter is the prettiest? Come on.
Oh, I'll be under the dog. I'll just say 8.
Okay. We've locked in your answer. Drum roll, please. The results are in. 8 got 0 votes.
Yes.
10-year-old cast strength was the winner with 38%. And then it pyramided down. 10-year-old Chinkapin got 5 votes. 15-year-old got 4 votes, and then 1 vote for the 12-year.
You know, I've never been so happy by being wrong, but I could see your group is very sophisticated and great palate, and just great. Yeah, honestly, 10-year-old always a winner, always cast strength. But I'm glad that a lot of you guys like the Chinkapin. That's so cool. That's kind of being, yeah, that's great.
It's definitely a fun one for sure.
I definitely had to go back and forth between the 10-year cast strength and the Chinkapin to decide which one I liked best. I mean, I liked them both, but that was a tough decision.
Yeah, I liked all of them so much, but the Chinkapin just kind of pulled me right to the front, and everything else is a really close second. But the 10-year cast strength is also really fabulous. I would seriously think at this point I've got a number 1 and 5 number 2s, because that Lum Reek is also really awesome.
But it's interesting that you know, us as whiskey drinkers, we gravitate towards the cast strength, right? That's a given. I'm curious what you would serve to a friend who's getting into whiskey, who's not going to drink 56.8. Well, which one of these expressions would be the one you would introduce them with? With the 12, the 15, the 10?
If they never tried GlenAllachie, I think 12 would be number 1 to introduce. That's,
There you go.
yeah. And then usually when you introduce people to the brand or to the whiskey, you start with something that it's more easy to explain and more adjustable to your palate, but then people start looking for some more viscosity, you know, malt profile, maybe some wood influence. So then it would be kind of evolution or upgrade. But yeah, 12 would probably be a starting point.
Yeah, fantastic. The 12 was so, I mean, as much as people hate the word smooth, was so smooth and easy to drink. It was quite dangerous.
Yeah, I think you guys nailed it. That 12-year has a beautiful nose to it. I think for somebody that's new to get that, I mean, that along with some of the classic sherry, easy to drink, it's perfect.
Are people here, are you guys also bourbon drinkers, or are you primarily still in the vein of Scotch?
We drink everything.
Yeah.
Okay. It's always interesting to me because I think, Sam, I've said this to you, and Vadim, you and I may have talked about this. It's easier to go from bourbon to Scotch than it is to go from Scotch to bourbon. And at least that's been my experience in talking to folks, because I'm the same way. I sort of cross over in it. I just look at them as different flavor profiles. I don't look at them as very different, but I also believe that that is an influencer also on the ability to step up to the cast strength. Oh, interesting. Somebody did go from Scotch to bourbon. Interesting.
Yeah, that's gonna be my journey too, Mark. I'm gonna join in on the Old Forester next week, and that's really my first experience with a bourbon tasting. I've just never been able to. I've never really been exposed to bourbon. Everything's been Scotch, so it'll be an interesting journey next week when we do the Old Forester.
Well, technically, you have been exposed to bourbon because a majority of Scotch is in ex-bourbon barrels. So you've got the building blocks that are there. So it's much easier to cross over from that perspective.
Ron and Kerry, who didn't make it today, but he spent about a week here in Northern California a few weeks ago, and he said United States is the only country when you say whiskey, people kind of need to make sure that whiskey is what American whiskey or bourbon or Scotch. Like you go to any other country, you say whiskey, people automatically think it's Scotch. So that was interesting kind of to hear that from him because he travels, the whole world.
And I like
Makes
the
sense.
Irish whiskey as well. So it's like somewhere in the middle.
But Mark, you're right. We need people to drink more bourbon because we need those casks for Scotch for sure.
I think there's no shortage of that.
I'm gonna say, my understanding is that what you really need is more people to start drinking sherry again. Because that's getting a little bit slim.
You're so right, Jason. Actually, there's a shortage of bourbon casks. Believe it or not, basically every and each of my suppliers would contact me asking to help with the bourbon casks. So
Wow,
I
good
was
to
going
know.
to say, I don't know if it's true, but I wonder if that's why we're starting to see alternative woods now for some of the barrels that are coming out, and Cooperage is embracing that because of the sustainability issue.
yeah,
Funny enough, Jason and Joshua just talked about this exact issue on their podcast, where what did they say? Of the wood of the oak that's used, only 3% of the oak being cut down is used for barrels. The rest is used for furniture. So, like, sure, let's address that a little bit. Let's address the fly in the room, not the elephant. Whiskey focus on sustainability instead of let's just make chairs out of something else.
good point.
Yeah, but this has been absolutely fantastic, and what a delicious tasting. It's very rare we have 5 expressions tied for first place. Everyone can't pick. This has been really fantabulous. Thank you, Sam. Thank you for sharing with us this wonderful brand and spending the evening with us.
Thank you, Vadim. I know you wanted to make sure that
No.
your members are satisfied, and that's where you went and bought a 6th bottle of them to enjoy. So I want to thank everyone for today's nice comments and in some way critique and great questions. Like I said before, I adore your group, and I wish everyone all the best. Thank you very much for everything.
Thank you so much, Sam.
Cheers.
Cheers,
Thank
everyone.
you.